Starting off, let's introduce ourselves, starting to my left.
Gary Casada.
Dan Godek.
Charlene Douglas, Mayor Pro Tem.
Mike Fournier, Mayor.
Ann Vara.
Doug Hedges, City Planner.
Ann Beakey.
Eric Klooster.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Item B is approval of minutes for the, from the April 9th, 2019 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Douglas. Is there support? Support by Mr. Godek. Any discussion on this? Okay, not seeing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion, the minutes are approved. Okay, this is, next item is public comment on non-agenda items. If there's anyone here that would like to approach the planning commission on a non-agenda item, raise your hand, I'll call you. Okay, not seeing, and we'll close the public comment on non-agenda items, and we're going to go to new business. Item number 1 is a public hearing, and it's a rezoning from mixed-use 2 to planned unit development and final site plan for SP 190203. Mr. Hedges.
Yeah, this is the final review of a proposed rezoning from property from mixed-use 2 to planned unit development. The Planning Commission saw this project earlier this year under preliminary review. The petitioner has gone back, made the revisions required by the commission under the preliminary approval, and they are now submitting the revised site plan to you for final review and a recommendation to the city commission. Again, it's still a 4-story multifamily building, 48 upper-level dwelling units with both underground and ground level parking. We've listed the necessary contingencies that would be sent to the city commission with the planning commission's recommendation, should you choose to do so. As I said, there were very minor changes made, mostly to notations within the plan. There's nothing that's significantly different than what you've seen before. But if you have any questions on our report or the plan, we'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Any questions from Mr. Hedges? Okay, now seeing is a petitioner here. Just please come forward and introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Gabe Rubin. I'm from Berkley Realty Group, representing the owners of the property located at 1003 South Washington Avenue. With me tonight is the architect of record, Brian Howard, from HF Architecture, and Charles Jones from EFI. As I had mentioned during the first Planning Commission meeting for this PUD, this development will add significant value to the underdeveloped Washington Avenue corridor and ultimately will help revitalize this area of downtown Royal Oak. If you have any specific questions regarding this proposed development, Brian Howard will answer your questions. In regards to any questions that you may have on the proposed stormwater detention system, Charles Jones will answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner? Okay, Mr. Casada.
We had a long discussion about this last time. You've addressed all the issues, I assume, that have been, were presented to you.
Yeah, Doug, when Doug sent his report, there were items in relationship to the balconies projecting out beyond the property line, which we pulled the building in. We still have the balconies projecting out, we just don't have them projecting out as far. But we did pull the building in off the property line to still allow us to have the balconies projecting. That was one item. Couple other small items beyond that were addressed via notes, as Doug mentioned. There were, we were able to increase the landscaping by pulling the building in, so we're not as deficient on the landscaping side as we were before. The areas with regards to reducing the drive aisle on Washington, we did that. So we feel like we've done everything that the city staff has asked us to do for this building.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner?
Yes.
Mr. Klooster.
Can you describe the unit mix to me, please?
So the unit mix is 2 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms, and studio units. And what we did is we put all the 2-bedroom units on the 4 corners on every floor, which gives us a total of, if I do my math right, 12. And then the 1 bedrooms are all the units that are overlooking either Washington, Hudson, or the alley. And the studio units are all the ones looking at the light well on all 3 floors. So they're duplicate floors on 2, 3, and 4. So, sorry, I don't have the math right off the top of my head, but.
And then can you just, what year storm is the stormwater detention designed towards?
And to refresh a little, the stormwater detention is designed in the Oakland County rules based on a 10-year storm. I used a 10-year 24-hour at 3.3 inches, and that's right out of the atlas, and that's a requirement of Oakland County.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, not seeing, is there discussion on this side? Oh, we have to, public hearing. Could you take a seat, please? Yes? Stand up. Yes, please, come to the microphone. I just need for you to introduce yourself. And public hearings, 3 minutes per person.
Okay, hi, my name is Judy Lewis. I live right next door, just moved in, new to Royal Oak.
Welcome.
Thank you. My question, I just got this because I have not been getting my mail. Those 5 condos right next door, they will be flush with us, so which means we are actually losing a little bit of space of looking out and seeing. But I just wanted to know from one of you, where, we have really nice backyards. I just want to know, this top floor is going to like be able to peek into ours. That was one of the reasons why we bought that, because we thought there was privacy, that no one was going to be, this is something new, I think, all over. And if this building is coming in, it's like whoever's on the 4th floor, and if there's even a rooftop something, I don't know, because I read everything and I saw the pictures. I have no idea what's going to be looking into where we are. And unfortunately, the first gentleman who's in the first condo is probably losing most of his window space. But I know he's out of the country, so I was just wondering. And then one other thing, does it have to be red? I mean, that's just, there's so many other colors to pick from. I mean, I see that, I go at that every day, and it's just that red is just so blatant.
Red?
Yeah, I mean,
Pretty red.
even brown, something. I mean, I know that it'll add value to everything, and I happen to agree, because I walk out there now, and it's just as, and then my other quick question was, how long is all this going to take, and when do they actually start in the morning and leave in the afternoon? And is it only 5 days that they're allowed to work? Because, you know, there are some days that I don't work. I don't want to be woken up every morning at 6. So those are my questions.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? We're in the public hearing, just 1 second. Anyone else from the public would like to comment? Okay, we'll close the public hearing, and petitioner, are you able to address a couple of those questions?
To answer her question with regards to if she bought, or she's purchasing or bought the condos to the building directly south, if that's what you're referring to? The building.
Those 5 that are right,
Upstairs, right? The ones on the top?
Yes.
We don't have any windows that face that direction whatsoever. We have stairwells, and the only ones that would ever look that way would be the studio units, but you're 1 floor higher than we are.
Oh, because it looked like it was flush.
No, it's not exactly
Sir,
flush.
just address the commission, and we'll
Yeah.
get the questions answered. Thank you.
So that's the best I can answer for that particular question. The other one that what was the other one? Sorry.
She doesn't like the color red.
I don't like the color brown. You don't like the color blue. I mean, we think it's making a statement for Royal Oak. We think it's fair that, I mean, it may not be fire engine red like that. It may be a subtler version of red, But I don't think anybody should dictate what color of a building is. It's my opinion. It's my opinion.
Okay, public hearing's over, thank you. Thank you, I think that was it.
Okay.
Is there any other questions at this time that the commission would like to address to the petitioner or Mr. Hedges? Ms. Beaky?
Can I make a comment? I was just going to comment that we had an extensive discussion about the building and some positive comments on the color previously, prior to your move perhaps. So I hope it works out for you, that you like the
I
building.
remember that, yes. Mr. Godek?
I think I was the lone no vote on this last time. And I'll probably be the lone no vote again. But the one thing that still bothers me, I guess, is the site triangle at Hudson and Washington there. We're allowing less than a 10-foot triangle for that. Do we know what's actually going to be there as far as the sight line for that intersection? Because it's one of the things we're waiving, I guess, in the contingencies, item, if I just had it, item C5. It looks like that's being waived, but I don't know what it ends up to. And the other comment I have is just the plan unit development kind of gives developers a blank slate. And I look at them for, the other guidelines we have for these are that they need to follow 6 things at the beginning of our instructions on this. And they need to, a PUD needs to comply with all 6, and I don't think they meet a couple of them. But I'll get off my pulpit with that, but I'm just looking at PUDs to generally bring in something that needs multiple things to come together for a plan that would otherwise not be possible without the PUD. Mixed uses, office and within the same development was some of the original thoughts of a PUD, but density is a little high for me. Looks okay on the plan, but I'll probably still be the...
Which 2, you said 2 of the conditions you weren't comfortable with of the PUD? Which?
Item number 1, C1, C1A. If you read that, a recognizable benefit to the community where the benefit would otherwise be unfeasible without the PUD. I kind of shortened it up for it to make sense, but what's the benefit to the community where this benefit would not be possible without a PUD? So it's, there's too many words in that for it to make sense if you don't read it like that, but and I think number 4, it's my interpretation, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thanks for the time.
Sure, yeah. Ms. Douglas?
Yeah, so the planned unit development zoning was established, Lord, I can't even say how long ago. And Mr. Godek is right, really the intention of planned unit developments were mixed use, and that was what Royal Oak desired. And I would say you look at the northeast corner of 11 Mile and Main Street, and we have a mixed-use development, retail on the ground, some office, and then residential. Unfortunately, the PUD language does not restrict it to mixed use. And so what we've been seeing around the city is residential developments using a PUD legally, but really not in the sense that it was intended. But one of the reasons for that is that our multifamily zoning is very outdated, and we as a Commission are in the process of bringing that into a line. So over the course of the next few months, we look to the staff to bring us some new zoning restrictions or zoning conditions for multifamily that will make it easier for developers to bring us the kind of multifamily residential that is in contemporary demand. And once that happens, I see us rejecting any planned unit developments that aren't mixed use. But we're sort of stuck with it right now.
Thank you, Ms. Douglas. Anyone else? Any other discussion, or is there a motion? Ms. Douglas?
Yeah, I'll move, the planning commission approves it and sends it to the city commission for its approval.
Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Casada. Any discussion on this motion? Mr. Casada?
I will only say if they can actually pull this off, I think people are going to like it. That's all I can say.
Anyone else? Okay, not seeing, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, motion passes 6-1.
Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pass that to Doug.
Yeah, he does.
Already got several. They're not gonna, no.
Okay. Let's go on here to the next item.
I've been saving that in my pocket for years.
Okay, item number 2 on the agenda. This is also a public hearing for a special land use and site plan SP 190511 to convert a former automobile dealership into a multiple-tenant building for fitness centers, training studios, and medical offices at 2605 West 14 Mile Road. Mr. Hedges.
Yes, the petitioner is proposing to renovate this building, which would be used by a combination of both fitness centers and medical offices. It'd be divided into 4 separate areas, although 2 of the centers on the ground level would be operating in conjunction with each other. The special land use is required due to the use of a fitness center within this area. The property is actually zoned general industrial and indoor commercial recreational facilities, including fitness centers and training studios, are included as a special land use in that zoning district, so they do need to have a special land use permit. There are also 2 variances the petitioner is seeking that they will need permission from the commission to proceed to the zoning board of appeals for. One is their total number of off-street parking spaces that would be required. The second is to offer massage therapy services as part of the fitness centers. Those, as the ordinance is written, outside of the general business zoning district, those activities can only be offered in conjunction with an actual medical office, which these uses could not be defined as. Therefore, they would need a variance to offer that service as part of their fitness centers. So as part of the motion to approve a site plan, they would need permission from the commission to proceed to the ZBA to seek variances for those 2 items. Other than that, their site plan appears to be in, total compliance with the required standards for the zoning district, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Any questions for Mr. Hedges? I've got a couple. Wasn't this in front of us, not this plan, but wasn't this site in front of us maybe 4 years ago for some specialty automobile shop?
It was, I believe that was in
It just sat there.
2014. They did get approval
Right.
to convert it back into a specialty automobile dealership and repair garage.
Okay.
They were granted a special land use permit and site plan, however, they never obtained building permits within a year, and those approval lapsed.
Okay, second question then, are we talking about the special land use and site plan separately? So if we were to move forward, would it be 2 separate?
Yeah, it'd be
motions?
two separate motions necessary, one for the special land use permit and then one for the site plan.
Okay, thank you. All right, no more questions for Mr. Hedges. Is the petitioner here?
Hello,
Your name, please?
my name's David Murphy. This is Stan Brish, and we have David Lawrence and Jeffrey Kong over there. Stan is the developer. I work for the architect, and these two gentlemen are part owners and also operators of the businesses, two of the businesses. So I think Mr. Hedges did a great job of kind of explaining what we're looking for. One item I just wanted to go into a little more detail is how the businesses function together. They are four separate entities. However, they work together to create one patient or customer experience. So if you have a back problem and you're getting physical therapy or personal training, your personal trainer may recommend that you need to go to a chiropractor, which is in the building. So that's kind of how they function, and they function also together with the massage therapy. And the massage therapy is strictly sports, athletic massage therapy for, how would you? Elite athletes, yeah, that's a great way to put it. So I think if there's any specific questions, I can go in more depth about anything else.
Ms. Beakey?
Reviewing the site plan, and I had walked around a little bit, and given the, both the parking shortages that you'll have, as well as the fact that it is a fitness and treatment center, are you planning on having any number of bike parking, that kind of thing, to offset some of the parking issues, and also to obviously encourage your clients maybe to come there actively?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Doug and I discussed having maybe some compact parking spots, and not necessarily the bike spots, but we would be happy to throw those. There's plenty of room on that front elevation to put bike parking there.
I mean, I think it would go with the business. And
Absolutely.
it would actually help a lot, and there's plenty of space on the front
Yes,
side.
there is. Yep, I agree.
And in the reality of the way the parking calculations were done, and again, my name is Stan Brish, I'm one of the developers and owners, and I'm a semi-retired guy that, they're here because I like their business model, otherwise I wouldn't be part of it. And the way that Tri-Covery and the way that Mecca's training works is, it is one trainer per one athlete. So even though there is a required variance for the parking spaces, in my having been a client for Mecca and Tri-Covery, I don't see we'll ever need that many spots, because there's only going to be roughly 11 to 17 people in the training area and 11 people in Tri-Covery. I know the chiropractor personally, because she's my chiropractor and my daughter works for her, she sees 17 patients a day. So I think when we actually sit down and discuss the parking more in detail, we're going to be in pretty good shape. But I love the idea of bikes and compact cars, so I'm totally on board. Ride the bike, you don't need to be trained, right, David? No, I'm just kidding.
It's a warm-up.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Mayor?
I'll just confirm, I see in the drawings here, you got 4 trees, I believe on the south side that I can see on Google Maps. And you're gonna replace those with 8 new trees?
That's correct.
See that?
There's going to be 8 trees along, do you have the, can we pull this?
I'm having issues
Oh, okay.
with our system, and this
Thank you.
computer's about ready to get launched out the window, so forgive me when that happens.
Mine's a little slow too over here, I'm not sure what's
Mine's
going on.
beyond slow.
I have it there if you don't. I don't want to state the number.
Yeah, I mean,
But we
mine's
did-
running a little slow here too, and I'm trying to confirm the tree count.
We did work in conjunction with Mr. Hedges on what we needed.
For the tree plan?
Yeah.
Okay, to be compliant with.
To be compliant. So there are 6 trees. And then there are 2 trees within the parking lot that we're going to add, so 8 total.
Total trees? Okay. I'll take
Well, those are coming out.
Mayor Pro Tem's thunder here. What kind of trees are they?
They are deciduous trees that The city of Royal Oak approves.
Okay, of a non-Bradford pear nature?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't
And
allow them in anywhere within my 8 million miles of me. They're split all over my property. Yes! That I just hate.
Okay, good. That makes me feel comfortable. I think it's important for everyone to know when we have these opportunities to come in and rehabilitate a property with a good concept, that, you know, it's not just all about the concept, it's also about, you know, this is, I know it's industrial, but it's still a neighborhood, right, of businesses, and having that greenery is important for our city in many regards. So I appreciate you confirming that we're going to have a net gain of trees and probably some better trees.
absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
When we were young, we would argue about everything.
And just to add to that, on the front elevation, we are adding more arborvitaes and some other plants to kind of liven the front.
I mean, it
out.
sucks up water. I mean, there's so many benefits from stormwater management to the aesthetics to just in general, we should be, you know, scrubbing the earth a little bit better at every opportunity. So
I agree 100%.
Well said. Any other questions for the petitioner? Mr. Godek?
I like the plan, and I like the business that you're bringing. But I agree with Commissioner Ann's comments there about parking. I will likely be voting in favor of this, but you still have to go in front of zoning and get that variance met. And you're 30% deficient, you know, it's, I'm hoping your business thrives and you are fully parked, but look at opportunities and for neighboring businesses, for your employees to possibly park off-site, something like that, and maybe have that ready for when you go in front of zoning.
Okay.
That's all I got.
I have a question. Is this all private fitness? Are you, well, you're open to the public, but is it just people
Yeah.
who contact you specifically for this care and training and?
Yeah, so not anyone can just walk in and use the
You have to have
facility. You have to.
appointment and?
Exactly, with a one-on-one trainer.
Okay.
You can't use the fitness center without being with a trainer. That's the business model.
Okay, so there wouldn't be like an open client type forum?
You
No.
don't get a membership and come in at your whim, you know, to work out your, David, you want to expand on exactly how you operate? Come on up. Sure.
Because I have to lose 10 pounds in the next month, so I'm just.
You picked the right spot, but you'll be tired when you're done.
Hi, I'm David Lawrence. I own Michigan Elite Conditioning for Athletes. We operate in Novi currently, and this will be our second location. Our niche in the market is we're high-end personal training, and all we do is one-on-one. We can't compete against a lot of other gyms that offer a group membership, but we do a really, really good job in one-on-one. And we train athletes, and we got general clients, or everybody looking to lose weight, and we train athletes in 30 different sports so far. But we have probably 12 guys from the Detroit Lions, and Jeff is kind of my business partner on the building. He owns Tri-Recovery Massage and Flexibility. He's the owner, and they're contracted out by the Detroit Lions. So they work with the Detroit Lions. Karen Slota is the chiropractor for the Detroit Lions. So what we do is we try to create a one-stop shop where people can get the very, very best service possible in a one-on-one fashion, and they can get really, really fast results. And so that's kind of our business model. That's what we do, so, yeah.
Thank you, appreciate that. Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, Phil, the seat, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this special land use? Okay, not seeing, we'll close the public hearing. Bring it back to this side of the table for further discussion on the special land use, or perhaps a motion. Ms. Douglas.
Yeah, just a couple side comments. My husband's been going through physical therapy for an injury, and massage is an integral part of the treatment. I know there have been people in this city who, railed against massage, rightly so, at one time in our history. But this is not that kind of massage. And I also remember that we approved a gym like this, a one-on-one training gym on Main Street, just north of Farnham, next to the office furniture place. And I live near there, I drove by there all the time, and I never saw the parking lot full. That was their premise, that they were doing one-on-one training. This building has been vacant for a long, long time, and as long as you're not trying to survive there while they're rebuilding 14 Mile, I think you'll probably be a success, and I'm gonna make a motion to approve the special land use as defined by the staff's report, and giving them permission to go to the zoning board for approval of their parking deficiency. Or is that part of the site plan, Mr. Hedges?
The actual permission to go to the ZBA should be part of the special land use permit motion, so
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay. Okay.
Support.
Support by, motion by Ms. Douglas, support by Mr. Klooster. Any discussion on this motion?
It seems like a really great project, really great use of the land there, very well thought out, and I think you guys will be successful, so welcome to Royal Oak.
I agree. I think this is a great premise. I'm looking forward to what you can do in that building, in that spot. It's been an eyesore for a very, very long time, so I will also be approving this. Any other discussion? Seeing all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the special land use has been approved. Now onto the site plan. Mr. Hedges, is there anything else that you would like to?
No, other than if you're happy with the landscaping and screening that's on their plan, you can eliminate the second contingency.
What page is that?
It's in the site plan memo.
Number 2?
Yeah.
Mr. Casada.
I think the petitioner said, in respect number 2, that there was going to be additional plantings that are not shown. So they've already said they're gonna add. So do we need to amend number 2, or it says necessary and advisable as represented by the petitioner?
It's shown on the plan. They're shown on the.
Oh, they are shown on the plan.
Yes, yes. I was saying that in addition to the deciduous trees, there are additional plants on the farm.
Okay, thank you.
Is that a motion, Mr.?
I'll make a motion, unless you have a comment.
Yes,
Mr. Godek, sorry about that.
no problem. Was that clear, Doug? You seem to want 2 striked based on what you saw on the plan.
No, it's, the contingency is written is basically our response to any landscaping plan, because our landscaping ordinance is set up to, the planning commission basically has the discretion to require whatever you want. That's why we include that in most site plan reports, so if you're satisfied with what's on the plan, there's no reason to keep that contingency in there. If there's stuff you want changed or added, then that can be addressed within that contingency. But on most site plans recently, it's been eliminated. You've been happy with what they've provided within the plans that are submitted.
Thank you for explaining that. Did you want to make your motion?
Can I make one comment? I also like the business plan and everything very much in the aesthetic that you're presenting here. Regarding the landscaping, just one other comment, especially again, since you're a health-oriented business, and this wouldn't influence my vote one way or another, but to the degree to which you could have, again, the native plantings, things that don't require a lot of fertilization, things that are cleaner rather than, again, the lawns, as we can shift towards that, again, especially since you're a health-oriented business, I personally appreciate it because I think it's important for the whole community. And I love the addition of additional trees. Again, it's a busy road, so that'll help a lot. So, and likewise with the bikes, that would be great.
Mr. Casada.
Okay, I guess I will move to approve the site plan, striking contingency number 2, since we don't need it, and otherwise, all the contingencies.
Support.
Support by Mr. Godek. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, now seeing all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Site plan's approved. Congratulations.
Great day.
I'm serious about that 10 pounds.
That's it.
Why this month?
Got 30.
Just in a month.
I got 30.
The next month is another 10. Okay. On to item number 3. This is also a public hearing, special land use and site plan to construct two-story, 560 square foot addition to a single-family dwelling in the Central Business District at 418 East 3rd Street. Mr. Hedges.
Yes, this application is for a petitioner who's proposing an addition to their single-family dwelling at the listed address. It's before you this evening through what is more or less a quirk of the Central Business District zoning language. It's the only zoning district we have where detached single-family dwellings are not listed as a permitted land use. They are listed as a special land use in this zoning district. It's fairly uncommon to have such dwellings in the downtown zoning district. There are a handful of them still remaining, especially in this area of 3rd Street. But in order to expand to add the addition the petitioner is proposing, they do need a special land use permit and site plan approval from the Planning Commission. What they're proposing is essentially a garage addition on the side, which does have some additional space above it. They do not have to comply with the normal bulk and area standards of the one-family residential zoning district since they're in the CBD. So many of the standards such as setbacks and lot coverage that would normally apply don't in this case, but just the way the ordinance language is written in the CBD, they do require the Planning Commission's approval to add the addition.
Thank you, Mr. Hedges. Any questions? Are the petitioners here? Welcome. Introduce yourself, please.
I'm Rick Vion. This is my wife, Sue Carmen Vion. And we want to build a garage because I'm tired of scraping ice off my van. I've never parked a car in a garage, but I'm getting a lot older, and it's getting old. Also, we want the storage upstairs because we are both artists. We're not hobbyists, but we do art for a living. And if anybody's ever been an artist for a living, you know that if you make 10 paintings in a year, you might sell 8. And so over the years, you need storage space. So my studio has been getting taken up with more and more storage of paintings. We would like to store some paintings up on the 2nd floor and park on the 1st floor. And we just need a garage.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner? Okay, so this is a public hearing, so if you could have a seat, I'll open it up and see if anyone wants to comment on this. Is there anyone here that would like to comment on this proposal? Okay, not seeing any. I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the Planning Commission for any questions, discussion, or a motion.
I'm inclined to motion to approve. Is that as is?
Motion by Ms. Beaky. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Casada. Any discussion? Mayor?
Yeah, I mean, this is your home. My family and I walk by on a regular basis, going to the farmer's market or downtown, very lovely. And interesting quirk, being in the Central Business District, but I think, this is obviously going to help you out a lot, and no qualms at all about supporting this. So I wish you the best of luck, and hopefully that art moves a little quicker than you need the storage.
Hope so.
You have a beautiful, beautiful.
And it's a beautiful home. It's very lovely. I always admired it.
It does need 2 motions, one for the special land use permit, one for the site plan.
Okay. Okay, so this first motion is for the special land use by Ms. Beaky, supported by Mr. Casada. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's the special land use. Is there a motion for the site plan? Motion by Mr. Casada,
I'll move to approve the site plan with the stated contingencies.
is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Klooster. Any discussion? I'm not seeing all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You're approved. Good luck.
Thank you.
The fun of construction begins.
Okay. That's it for public hearings. We've got a site plan next, SP 190513. This is to install a billboard with an electronic message center on site of a furniture manufacturer, Vogue Furniture, on 272014 Mile. Mr. Hedges.
Yeah, the petitioner is applying for a site plan approval to install a billboard with an electronic message center on the listed property. The proposed location and height of the proposed billboard does comply with all required standards for billboards within the zoning ordinance. The property is zoned general industrial, in which they are a permitted use. As I stated, it does comply with all required standards. We didn't see anything that was out of the ordinary that would require any variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The only contingency we've added is that they do maintain compliance with the standards for electronic message centers that are, they can't really certify on the plan that they maintain a static or still images only, no special effects, minimum duration, et cetera. We'll just add that as a contingency. As I said, we don't see any other item that is out of compliance. And I believe the height, it's, looking on the plans, it's a maximum height of 25 feet. The sign area was in compliance, which I believe is 300 square feet. And it is set back behind the parking lot that is in front of the building. So it does have a pretty substantial setback from 14 Mile Road, but I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission has on our report.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hedges? Mr. Godek?
In our zoning requirements for billboards, are they allowed only in certain areas?
The general industrial zoning district is the only one that they're allowed as a permitted use, yes.
And that's basically this area around 14 and Coolidge there.
14 in Coolidge, there are a few other smaller areas near 12 in Campbell, and there's still one remaining small area around around Lincoln and the railroad tracks as well.
I'm still reading up on the 770-25 or whatever, 57 rather, what you're referencing here, but is there something in there that says they have to be, they can't be so close together? They have to be like, you can't have one within 1,000 feet of the next one or something?
There is a standard, yeah, that they need to maintain a minimum distance from other billboards. We've listed the ones that are nearby within an aerial photo on our report. There's one on Coolidge near the self-storage facility, and then there's two near the railroad tracks. All three of those are beyond the minimum required distance from this site, so it did comply with those standards to be separated from existing billboards. I believe it's by 1,000 feet.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Hedges? Let's see, is the petitioner here?
Yes. My name is Justin Hill. I am with Lockridge Outdoor Advertising, and I also represent Crossroads Digital Outdoor.
Do you have anything else to add, or have we heard what we need to hear?
Well, I'd certainly like to address the lighting standards, and the standards for billboards have been in place for quite a few years, and we're using a Watchfire billboard that I believe you do have a copy of the light study for. The light study does also mention the standards that they have in place. We cannot operationally turn the brightness up to go above the requirement of 0.5 nits at the property line. We can't even get it to go up to that brightness. Just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that in case the sign changes hands. We also, of course, have within our own lease agreements with the landowner, and any future owner of this sign, if it does change hands, of course, also has to comply with that. We use Watchfire billboards. They are one of the top billboard manufacturers in the U.S., and they build common safety mechanisms that are required by the National Highway System and the state as well. We're also under the same no transition effects, an immediate change between ads, no fading, and all of these things have been an industry standard now with billboards, and this is, just want to make sure you guys are aware, has the most modern technology to accomplish that. One of those pieces of technology is light sensing. So we automatically detect the ambient light so that it's never releasing an obnoxious amount of light, regardless of how many nits are visible at the property line. We're usually significantly under that. If it's a cloudy, overcast day, then the brightness is going to be much lower. So it is very much more aesthetic pleasing sign than you may see with an on-premise style digital sign that may not have all that technology in place. So.
Thank you. Mr. Godek.
Do you know what you're angling this towards 14 Mile at a certain degree?
Yes, I couldn't tell you the actual degrees, but it's, yes.
And this is a single-sided?
It is a single-sided.
It's going right here.
But it looks like you're targeting people that are heading
Eastbound.
eastbound on 14 Mile?
That's correct.
Perspectives right there.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
right at the corner of their building, so I don't.
Is this on the top of that Perspectives? Is this Perspectives on the, is that a different company, or is it?
This is Vogue Furniture.
I believe it used to be called Perspectives.
Yeah,
It depends when that was taken,
okay.
so.
So that whole building is Vogue Furniture, the entire building?
As far as I understand, it is a manufacturer, and they
Okay.
acquire the whole building.
Okay. Mr. Casada.
They're good furniture, by the way. And second of all, I am interested, I'm not a big fan of billboards or electronic messaging signs, but I'm fascinated when I see these huge billboards that you can't even tell they're lit.
Right.
And when I read your, what you provided us here, I wonder, this is the top end of this billboard will do that. You're gonna look at it and you're gonna say, geez, is that even lit?
Precisely. The idea is to stay just enough above ambient so that it's visible, but that it's never high enough above ambient to be obnoxious.
All right. Thanks. I don't know why they don't have the on-site signs that are smaller. You'd think they'd be more manipulable, but anyways, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Klooster.
Can you speak to the intended height of the billboard?
25 feet overall height.
What's the maximum?
Any other questions? Okay, this is not a public hearing, site plan, so is there any other discussion or questions for the petitioner, Mr. Hedges, or a motion? Mr. Casada.
I will move to approve site plan.
Moved by Mr. Casada, support?
Support.
Well, Ms. Douglas had her hand up first, so.
Because you were looking my way.
Support by Ms. Douglas. Any discussion on this? Mr. Godek?
Be supporting the motion, just based on I can't really particularly pull out something as of yet, although possibly one of the first things in 77057 is for people to be looking, this is a safety concern for me for distracted driving, for someone to take in information on this side of a billboard traveling eastbound on 14 Mile. This is like one of the heaviest traffic count areas in our city, and I think it would have a detriment to safety. Thanks.
Just one point
Ms.
of
Beaky?
clarification for myself. So this is a billboard that's sitting on this business, but it's not pertaining to the business. This is just a general
That's
billboard.
correct. It contains off-premise advertising.
And it is permitted in this area.
It is a
according to
permitted
our
use in the
city.
zoning district, yes.
I guess personally, I'm not very pro billboards in any way, shape, or form. But okay, that's permitted, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
If I may add, we do syndicate the billboards into the emergency alert network. So amber alerts, silver alerts can be broadcast on the billboard as well. And I want to make sure you're aware of the right-of-way setback. Because of billboard size and because of the safety concerns that he brought up, your code has required a 75-foot, very significant right-of-way setback. And that's from the right-of-way, not from the curb. So we're actually further from the curb than 75 feet. The right-of-way extends into the property. So we're quite significantly set back.
Mr. Godek?
My safety concern is not someone driving off the road and running into your sign.
Understood.
And I guess the further back off the road it is, probably the worse it is, from the consideration of someone, instead of looking ahead to pedestrians or cars in front of them, they're looking farther off to read the good information on your sign, so I'll leave it at that.
Mayor?
Yeah, just like Commissioner Beaky, you know, no offense, I'm just not, nobody is out to say, can we get more billboards in our town? But, you know, it is zoned here, it is an industrial area. There's not any, you know, particular variances that we need to be concerned with. So I'm supporting it on that because of, you know, I mean, if you're coming in asking for a bigger or wider or brighter, you know, billboard, that would be a clear no. But, you know, we have to find cause based on our ordinances, and I don't see it here.
I'd like to ask a question of our attorney. It is a permitted use. We had a billboard come up before this planning commission about 5 years ago on Coolidge, across from English Gardens,
Yes.
and we denied it. And now there's a billboard there. So, because this is a permitted use, how do I want to ask this? I have a concern also. This is the traffic on this area is horrible. It's unsafe. It's overly traveled. There's a McDonald's right there. I've seen plenty of accidents in this area. I just think that this is a distraction, but so my question for the attorney is, why is this a permitted use without the consideration of traffic patterns? Is that a bad question?
I can't tell you if that consideration is in the zoning act.
Okay.
But those considerations do come up on the basis for approval or denial. But there needs to be objective, as you mentioned, there needs to be objective evidence to show that.
Okay. Ms. Douglas?
Yeah, I'm no lawyer, but
I'm not either.
yeah. We, over the years, have, I mean, a pretty general consensus that nobody likes billboards, especially not electronic billboards. And so we've written our zoning ordinance so that there are precious few places where somebody can shoehorn a billboard in. And they just happen to, I'm sure you drive around the city looking for those spots. And they have found one of the lucky spots where it meets the requirements. And we as a commission cannot speak of or acknowledge the content of it in any way. All we can regulate is the setback. As he points out, it's an enormous setback, which was one of the ways we, you know, tricks we used to limit them, but we're stuck with this one, no disrespect.
Understood. If I may, we've actually spent a lot of time developing in the southern Michigan area for Crossroads Digital Outdoor. They're out of Lansing, and that's our specialty, is developing new locations. And this, if it's of any consolation, There are no legal locations that we could find, with the one exception of, is it Coolidge? It's Coolidge Highway, just to the west of this location, I
Yes.
believe. I believe there was a variance given to Lamar, and there was a billboard there. I believe that there's a storage facility there that has since been built, and the billboard's gone.
They're moving it.
And
Is it gone?
Yep.
No, they're,
But it's going to be?
they're, like, when he's done, I can give you the history.
Okay,
thank you.
And from my own study of this area and lots of the areas that are here in southern Michigan, in terms of your city limits, this billboard being erected, as far as I can tell, will eliminate any other possible billboard location, with the possible exception of the Coolidge area, which we personally don't have on our radar. It's not of interest to us, but I really don't know if it's even, I believe it had to have a variance or something before to have a billboard placed there.
That billboard on Coolidge that everyone's speaking of, it was before the planning commission back, what was it, 2013, 2014, I don't recall exactly what year. Back then, billboards were a special land use in the general industrial zoning district. The application came before the planning commission. It met all of the required standards, setback, height, area, everything. Planning commission denied it still. Both the special land use permit and the site plan, the petitioner sued, we lost, and the billboard was installed. When the site plan for the expansion of the self-storage facility came in, it included relocating that billboard from where it was first put in to along the north side lot line of the storage facility. So it will be going back up at a certain time.
That's my
But
memory.
the petitioner is right, though. Our standards are written. There are very few sites where it's possible to get a billboard that complies with all of our standards. They found one. This is it.
And the other 4 properties in the same vicinity that are also legal, if you found the right spot on the property, which is extremely difficult, are now not legal if ours, again, is installed.
Right.
So it takes all of those out of contention
That's the factor of the 1,000-foot.
on both sides of the highway, 1,000 feet.
Mr. Godek?
Chairperson, Ian, you brought up a good question in, if we didn't like it for legitimate reasons for safety, there, in the code 77057, which I think was edited after we were sued, it talks about electronic messaging. There was like 6 findings in there, and it came up with E through H on regulations for the electronic messaging, which helped with it being less distracting. The size of the message must be at least a foot tall. You can't have sequential messages, so on and so forth. So one of the most often seen problems with our electronic messaging in the city is the period of time that they update displays. And every petitioner comes in front of us, as this gentleman will tell us, that won't happen, but it does. Quite often, we've all seen it. I guess I would encourage us to be diligent with reporting these, and I don't know if there's any, if people don't comply with zoning after a couple times, is there some teeth in our zoning requirements to pull the permit for these things, if someone doesn't get it after a couple of zoning violations. I don't know if that's something we can look at in the future for amending our billboard ordinance, or electronic signs for that matter, that something we can talk about in future meetings, but not right now. Just some thoughts. Thank you.
Godek? Any other comments on this? Is there a motion? Yeah, I'm sorry, there was discussion period. So there's a motion by Mr. Casada, support by Ms. Douglas, to approve the billboard with electronic message center. Any other discussion?
I'll just comment, if there's ever an opportunity for us to review as a city these permissions, I'd like to see us look to restricting this further for both the aesthetic value and safety. But given the current regulations, I understand that this is permitted.
Good comment.
Might I add a comment?
We're in the middle of a motion, so, thank you. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
6-1. Approved.
I'm the lone wolf.
Find any shrimp?
I felt that was a forced approval on my part.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I remember the.
It's an
the one
important.
on Coolidge that we-
Oh, I remember a lot of closed sessions on that one.
Right.
I want everybody to read 770-57
Well, let me
tonight.
just write that down here, Dan. What is it? 771?
-57.
I'm surprised Casada doesn't have that memorized. Okay. We are under other business now. This is a sign variance, SV, is this the one? This is going, isn't it?
What?
This one?
Yes, the first two are
Okay.
going, third one, the best.
Okay, sign variance 190504. This is a request for restaurant Pinky's at 100 South Main Street to install a wall sign on east front and north side facades of the upper level with following variances. I'll let Mr. Hedges talk about those.
Yeah, they've applied for another sign permit to add a wall sign on their upper level. The building division reviewed it and determined there were two standards it didn't meet. They already have an approved sign on their lower level, so the second sign would be a second side on facade. The ordinance only allows one sign per facade. And the second standard was the sign does wrap around the corner of the building and therefore would be displayed on two facades simultaneously, which is also not allowed under the sign ordinance. So they are seeking those two variances to install the sign as proposed.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Hedges? Okay, it's petitioner here. Welcome back again.
Good evening, Roman Monoslawski, Ron and Roman. I'm happy to be back in front of you. Also, I hope that this board has had the opportunity to see what we've been doing with regards to what Pinky's rooftop is. I'm truly, you remember the previous, so that goes away. In this case, we have a very, very unusual building, unusual situation, and we've really toned it down in a big way. That little wrap of the corner is stylistically as important for what you see in that rest of the facility. It really also gives a little bit of presence because though we got the variances for those two little Pinky's monograms on the, you realize you can't even read them from the street. It's really part of being up there that you notice those two. That's really it. I'd love to just have the discussion with you and see if you agree, or if not, and what else I might have to pull out of my bag of tricks to try to convince you with.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner?
I don't have a question per se, but I think it's a dramatic improvement over the last one. And I personally like the little wrap around the corner.
Is the sign lit, or are those lights on the sign?
It's like, it's a neon tube on the sign, so it is a little 5-inch thick box that's curved. Stylistically, it's painted. It's not internally illuminated. It's just used as a sign box for the placing of the neon.
What about those black things underneath? It looks like those are lights. Are they lights?
Yes, they are, because we're also lighting the face of it in order to take advantage of seeing the pink outline of the,
Okay, thank
of the
you.
box.
Mr. Klooster?
Is there, I believe that our ordinance calls for all exterior lighting to be directed downwards to avoid light pollution. Is that correct?
Not aware if that's applicable to the sign ordinance.
Okay.
Especially for internally illuminated wall and freestanding signs, they'd be in, wouldn't be able to apply it to those, but I know it's applicable for exterior lighting under the zoning ordinance, but I don't believe it's a standard within the sign ordinance.
comment with
Mr.
regards to that?
Godek?
I'll defer to the gentleman to respond.
Okay.
The lights are specific, they're cutoff fixtures. We're not trying to light and cast a shadow onto the rest of the building, and I know it's very near the parapet wall, but we're truly positioning the light to just hit on that piece, so we're not skylighting, night lighting the sky at that point.
Thank you.
Mr. Godek?
Thank you. I too don't mind the wraparound component here of it. Because the wraparound really doesn't create any more things to look at other than making it kind of a corner sign. I think we did something like this on a restaurant in Woodward that I can't recall, where we kind of allowed a sign to wrap around the corner.
That was Vincent Grill that we did. We were in front of you.
Good job with that. Thank you for jogging my memory. What are the other things that are not in compliance besides wraparound on this? I can't seem to.
Second sign.
Just the second sign?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You mean the one on the,
Well, it's one building, you have diamonds.
Yeah, the one
I see.
above the
Oh,
ground
yes,
floor
yes,
entrance.
second sign on the per building, not per
Yep.
unit. Mayor and then Mr. Casada.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I look at the two variances, I look at them through a lens of what we actually see here. I mean, this is a pretty popular place already. There's a little bit of wayfinding there. I think the wrap is artistic and it kind of fits, the orientation of the building and actually helps draw the eye to this is Pinky's and you don't have people driving around looking. So I think there is a little bit of a wayfinding element in addition to, the aesthetic quality of it. I don't see any real issues with the lighting, the illumination. It seems like the right size, given the footprint. The second sign, again, given the unique, yes, it's one building, but and one operator, but there are really two distinct businesses. And we've done this before along Woodward where we had a pizza shop, a wine shop. And I think that also helps people understand, where a place of commerce is. So again, going back to wayfinding, you're not going to this corner, you're going to one or the other. And I think it's helpful to have the second sign. So I think in this unique circumstance, it makes sense to approve the variances.
Mr. Casada?
I don't recall, maybe Mr. Hedges can help me, when Red Fox was there, did they have also a sign? Did we give them a variance? I don't recall that.
They had numerous variances. They had multiple signs on both levels on the east and the north facade, so they had several variances.
Okay, and the reason I is sort of echoing the mayor here is that this isn't 100% typical because the same operator is operating two distinctly different sort of moods. One upstairs is, I've actually been there, by the way. I was there the other day and it's very crowded and we had a lot of fun. But I kept telling people, they're gonna put a palm tree here, so don't let me down. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, for that reason, yes, it's two different restaurants. But also, the variance on the sign that is on the corner, so they only really have one sign there. So they got one sign on the bottom and one sign on the top, that's two signs. So, when I look across the street at Bookie's, which is another restaurant I love, I would say, boy, we should have given them a wraparound sign because the two signs at each side really doesn't look as good. This looks much better. I know that's my opinion, but, so I would support this. I think aesthetically it works. I don't think we should restrict the creativity when they're really not, in this case, they're not asking for what they were last time. I thought last time it was too much. I think this is a much better scaled back, intelligent way to seek a variance.
The background for the neon, is that a metal wraparound sign?
It's a metal constructed box that's 5 inches thick. Typically, it would be a sign box, but we're just making an empty sign box out of it.
Okay. Mr. Godek?
I'll move the sign variance, SV 190504.
Motion by Mr. Godek, support by Mr. Casada. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Enjoy Pickies.
All right. Sign variance, next is also sign variance 190505, for request for retail store CBD hemp store at 32206 Woodward Avenue. Mr. Hedges.
Yeah, petitioner is asking to reuse a non-conforming freestanding sign at this location. The existing sign has a height of 23 feet. The maximum permitted under ordinance is 16. So they are simply asking for a 7-foot variance to reuse the existing sign as is.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Hedges?
Why do they have to ask to reuse it? I'm just curious, if it's already there.
The way our sign ordinance is written, you can't reuse a non-conforming sign once it's no longer in use, and you try to reuse it.
Oh,
it
they
does
moved
require-
it?
No, it hasn't been moved.
New
It's
facing.
just new
Oh,
facing
okay,
on it.
okay, thank you.
Petitioners. Welcome.
Thank you. Hopefully we can move things along. We're almost at the end. My name is Josh Colton. I'm here. I'm an attorney representing the store and to talk to you a little bit about the sign and why we feel that a variance is appropriate in this instance. They also came up just to provide any additional clarification you may have. So in order to determine whether or not there should be a variance, there's a list of factors to look at, and a lot of it kind of revolves around, the intent of the sign ordinance within Royal Oak's ordinance. The ordinance specifically talks about a number of concerns, including things like protecting the public's right to receive messages, to be able to identify businesses, to allow for the enabling of location of goods, to improve the city image. A lot of the negative things that it's trying to protect against are things like public safety, health and welfare, reducing visual clutter, loss of sight distance. This location truly is a unique situation in that, as was pointed out just a moment ago, there already is a standing pole. There has been signage there in the past. It is sandwiched in between and smaller than the surrounding businesses, all in the same strip mall, including the one most notable directly to its left, if you're looking at it, which is Buddy's Pizza. Buddy's Pizza has a sign which is already larger than the desired sign significantly. Additionally, if you look further down to the left, there's about 3 or 4 other businesses within the next 7 or 8 businesses that have signs that fall outside of the requirement of the ordinance. And if you look to the right, there are not only signs that are larger, but there's also buildings that are larger. The biggest restriction and what prevents them from being able to be in compliance with the 16 feet requirement is the fact that the building itself is just about 13 feet tall. So they even played with the idea of possibly building a 3-foot tall sign, and the reality of it is because of its kind of tucked away nature that it has with the neighboring businesses, along with the much larger signs, it actually would serve absolutely no benefit to the business and makes it extremely difficult to locate. When I first actually attempted to drive by and identify it, I drove by the business twice before I was able to see it. It's tucked away, and then I finally pulled it up, looked at the Buddy's sign and Buddy's. So if they were able to just advertise their business through Buddy's, they might have better luck than telling people to go to their business. Some of the other requirements that are talked about is this to any fault of their own? Is this diminishing property values? Is this out of compliance with what is in that area? And I think the answer is pretty clear on all of those, that it's very, very consistent with what is around it. It clearly was intentionally put there at one point by the committee, and we would ask that you allow them to use it for what its initial intent was, and that a variance is extremely appropriate in this situation.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner? Ms. Douglas?
Okay, Google Earth, Google Street View, August 2018. I'm looking at a picture of this building. There is no sign on that sign pole.
Correct. The sign has not been there for a little while.
So you're not refacing an existing sign, you're adding.
Correct, we're using an existing sign pole, but there was not a sign that has been there in the most recent time period. I couldn't give you an exact date of how long it hasn't been there.
So you're gonna have to, you're gonna have to spend money making a sign box and attaching it to a pole, there's an expense connected with that. What is the additional expense of just whacking the pole off and putting your sign down a little lower?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry, you want to go ahead and, I mean,
The actual space,
Well, I mean,
and the way it's located too.
we
No, you'll have to come to the microphone,
I'm sorry,
please.
I'm sorry, go
And
ahead.
if you could introduce yourself, that'd be great.
My name is Tori Welsh, co-owner, Mother Earth Natural Health. That's the CBD shop that was in discussion, obviously. We haven't had permission from the landlord. I don't think we could get permission from the landlord to adjust the pole to a 16-foot height because of, obviously, he has that currently, and he doesn't want us to adjust that according, to fit the 16 foot, so that's why we're here. So we haven't been given the blessing by him for any adjustments of the property.
And I'm sorry, go ahead, yeah, absolutely.
My name's Ariana Welsh, I'm the co-owner also with my brother Tori. We, standing on the roof, marked out the area that would be, say, the remaining area between the top of the roof and the 16-foot threshold, for where the ordinance is. The sign ends up being actually under 3 feet tall. And where it is in the plaza, the plaza kind of angles a little, and we're kind of tucked back even, I'd say probably about a foot to 18 inches further than some of the neighboring businesses. So we're kind of a little bit set, it's not a huge difference, but of course for visibility, it is a difference. And you wouldn't hardly even see the sign coming down Woodward. And Woodward's obviously a very well-traveled, fast-traveled road. So that's just limiting, on that sign to get between the building height, or the top of the building rather, and the 16-foot requirement.
Are you going in the Posey building or the one next to it?
We're next to Posey's. We're between Posey's and...
You're in the Jewelers.
Correct. Yes, between Posey's and Buddy's.
Okay. Gotcha. So the jeweler owns that pole?
Yes, it belongs to that building, yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's our building now.
Okay. Mr. Godek?
I actually, like Commissioner Douglas's comments, and if you look at your proposed picture, where you have a black and white image on a pole, I'm not saying cut the height of the pole down, but not necessarily mount the sign to the exact top. I'm not saying come down 8, how many feet, we're 7 feet difference, but something to kind of bring it in line with the businesses, like the mattress place. We've been fairly consistent with cleaning up signs that are non-conforming in Woodward, whether they've been there for years or not. This commission has been pretty consistent with, like, if there's a big pole there and you want to just put the sign back up there, we're trying to, I mean, it's a historic highway that if there's something there that doesn't belong now, we try to clean them up. But I understand your hardship, there's a pole there, you can't be seen. I would like to see the sign mounted maybe 3 feet or 4 feet below full height. Something like that as a compromise. And I would support something like that.
Mayor?
So, Mr. Godek, just to confirm, you're basically saying keep the same size of the sign, just instead of having that 4 foot space, 4 foot 1 inch space between the top of the building and the bottom of the sign, just slide it down a little bit? Is that what you're?
Correct. I was wondering if the architect on the board here could tell me what that might look like.
Yeah.
If he would be in agreement with something like that.
So, from an ownership standpoint, I would be concerned that if you're doing that and facing it towards the rear, like the Buddy's sign and the mattress store sign is, that line of sight, you would lose your visibility. I guess my question would be, and we don't have a site plan in front of us, maybe Mr. Hodges knows, is this building up against the property line currently where it would not be able to project towards Woodward?
Yeah, it would not be allowed to overhang Woodward. There's about less than a 1 foot gap between the front facades of these buildings and the right-of-way line.
Okay.
Which is how some of them have been able to stick freestanding signs in front of their building. But the sign ordinance does not allow them to overhang into the right-of-way, which is why they're then turned and essentially hang over the top of the buildings.
I'm sorry, can I?
Yeah, please, Mr. Godek.
I was more concerned with how it would look aesthetically with, a sign not placed at the top of the pole. You'd have an extension of the pole above the sign. Is that something you see once in a while? I think there's enough distance between Buddy's and this one to where it would still be seen as well, and the petitioner would still get a sign that's not, at the rooftop level. It would be above it, but just kind of bringing it back down a little bit so it's not as obtrusive. If the, a pole extending above it would look bizarre to you.
Okay, so now we're talking about subjective taste, and I would say no. To me, I don't think that would look good. I think it would look like a half-strung flag. So
Half-mast, flags at half-mast.
yeah, so I have a hard time, being on board with that suggestion.
Are you in this building yet?
Oh, yes.
Do you have a sign on that awning on the front?
Yeah, we have a sign on the facade that we got a permit for.
Okay, so is that an issue, Doug, if they have two? Okay,
Not at all.
so we're dealing with the pole
The
issue.
the only thing that's not in compliance is the height of where they want to mount the sign. It meets the maximum. They're allowed 42 square feet, that's what they're proposing, 7 feet by 6 feet. The only issue is its height.
How long have you been open?
Since March 22nd.
Oh, okay. Are your customers having a hard time finding you?
Yes.
Absolutely. We unfortunately have to use, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but we use Buddy's as a landmark to find us because we have no other way of, other than jumping around out in the parking lot maybe, but, Buddy's is our landmark right now.
Maybe you don't need any sign.
Any other?
Use the Buddy's landmark as the sign.
It's cheaper.
They share space, maybe.
Huh?
If they want to share their sign, maybe.
So you'll market Buddies for free pizza every day.
They've gone corporate, so it's not the small town now. I know, it's not as quaint.
Mr. Casada, sorry about that.
So I did want a clarification. So if, for whatever reason, this sign pole was 4 feet lower, they wouldn't have to be here for a variance?
No, they're allowed 16 feet. And if they move it down 4 feet, it's still gonna be 19 feet to the top.
I just suggested 4.
Well,
The owners have said, no way, we're not gonna cut the sign? Or they cut the pole?
Yeah, he would not let us cut the pole off at any height to meet. That's why we're here applying.
Because he thinks he'll get a sign sometime?
If we move out or whatever have you, I guess he would have that argument at that point.
So he'd have to come before us anyway.
Right.
Did the jeweler ever have a sign there?
No idea. I haven't gone through the history of the site.
Ms. Douglas is.
Oh, that's not a hand, that's
listing,
just
or
I know Buddy's did get one.
Nothing there.
They got a variance?
Yes, they did.
Buddy's
Lower,
pole
that'd be
is
big
actually
incentive for
26
the
and a half foot.
landlord to allow.
And this is how, this
This is 23.
23.
23,
Yep.
okay.
Look at this.
When did Buddies get their variance?
In the last 2 years.
Really? I must have been away.
What? We let that?
You did that?
I will comment, if you don't mind. May I?
Please.
I was here, I regret I voted in favor of it. Buddies told us that they were just gonna do the face, so we said okay, but then they took the whole thing down and redid the whole thing and then put it back up. And I think that one of the purposes of sign ordinances is to reduce the number and size of these type of signs. And so I would just tell you I regret that vote because it was an opportunity, and I think Buddies would have done better without any sign at all on the pole because they have a nice looking facade. And I think that, I know this is subjective, but I'm regretting that if we give any sort of variance, we're gonna have a white interior lit fluorescent sign on this pole, and I'm not really hoping to see all these signs duplicated. You matching the mattress sign, that's not what I want. I don't want to match the Buddy sign. So I'm not inclined to support a variance because I don't want to see these signs like this. I'd like to reduce the number of them because I think that's what the ordinance is hoping to do too. But if somebody can come up with something that looks good and makes sense, I'll listen to it. But other than that, I think a good-looking sign on the facade is gonna do you more good than anything.
I get the clutter. I'm been back and forth on these issues, but I have to tell you, I've lived in my house south of here for 23 years, and I go to Buddy's for pizza, and if it wasn't for that sign, I would go past it every time. Because the only way I can find Buddy's is because of that sign. And I agree with you, they've got a nice awning, but it's really, traffic is terrible, it's dangerous, it's hard, these front parking are difficult, it's tiny, hard to maneuver. That's why I'm struggling with this one. Mr. Klooster and then Mr. Godek.
Yeah, I'll echo Mr. Casada and Mr. Godek's comments that we've been fairly consistent that when a non-conforming sign comes in front of us, we tend to make it conform. So I can't support a variance for this either. I think we need to be consistent in the way we treat the variances that come before us, and I will be continuing to vote the way we've voted in recent history.
Except for 2 years ago when somebody voted to give Buddy's a
innocent.
variance.
He's
I was not
innocent.
at that meeting, I can tell you that much.
I'm guilty. He's innocent.
Mr. Godek?
I was at that meeting and I voted no. As you've seen here tonight a couple of times already. Unfortunately, this is an iconic stretch of road for Michigan and beyond, and we have been consistent. Arby's, we forced them to a small sign and it looks better. And so I won't be supporting this.
Ms. Douglas?
Yeah, we only get one bite at the apple. I mean, we changed our sign ordinance a number of years ago, reducing height. But obviously all of the signs that were still standing there were left standing there. And so it's only when somebody comes to us with a change that we get a chance, like one bite at a time, to reduce the overall signage here. And if you knew then what you know now, you would have negotiated a lease with your landlord that made your landlord take care of the sign height, because he's not going to get, I mean, if you succeed and move to another building and he has to lease this out to somebody else, that tenant isn't going to get a sign up there either. So, and the only thing I'm not sure of is, do we, give them a compromise to take back to their landlord, or, I mean, I don't want to really turn this down cold. But what do we think about, and I do think it looks weird if you take the sign and basically plop it on top of the building and lop the top of the pole off. So I guess I'm looking for ideas here. Maybe that is the idea. If it's lower than the Buddy sign, at least people coming from the north will see it. Huh?
Half is better than none.
So,
I just want to make one comment relative to this idea of the wayfinding relative to the Buddy sign. And again, in some ways you say, okay, everyone should have the same sign or same sign site, and then racing cars are going to see. But actually, the reality is more signs make it harder to see the few signs that are there. And from a pure Find My Store perspective, it's not, in my opinion, personally, the worst thing to say, we're right next to Buddy's Pizza on Woodward, and obviously you already have a sign on your awning. So to me, adding the sign doesn't help that much. I mean, unless people are purely driving. I mean, most people are using their phones to tell them where things are, I think. Having said that, again, if the ordinance allows it, I would go with it. But because this is a variance, I agree with people who have been on this commission much longer than I am. I think it should be a compromise situation, not a approval as it is, simply because, again, we're trying as a city to reduce that visual clutter past things being passed. So that's just a comment from me, but I will take leadership from others on this.
Can I just add one thing? Sorry.
From a safety perspective too, when you're constantly looking down at your phone, trying to find the building that's tucked behind everybody else, at least if you have that visual, even with a compromise, you can at least locate so that you know which Michigan left to go hit. So, you know,
I
instead
hope
of.
they're not looking at their phones. I mean, listening.
But that's the problem, when they're looking at the phones, if it's most of our customers aren't calling us first and saying, where are you?
I see.
So that's just as a wayfinding aspect too.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions for the petitioner?
So again, the size of the sign is allowed, it's the height on the
height
post.
is the issue.
Mr. Godek?
Do we know what the height of the building is?
It's about 13 feet.
Says on their plan about, 12 feet, 11 inches, so approximately 13 feet.
I hate to propose something like this, but, we were talking about moving the sign down. And I agree that leaving the pole height is the wrong thing to do. The flag at half-mast is a good image that Mr. Klooster provided. But I don't know if we think that if they cut the pole, if we approve something like cutting the pole 4 feet and mounting the sign at the height of which would be 19 feet at that point, so we'd give him a 3-foot variance, that he could take that to the landlord and say, listen, I want to cut the pole down 4 feet and make it work here. That might be really good incentive for the landlord, and if he doesn't, then so be it. Something like that, how does that sound to people?
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
What did you say?
That's what I was gonna ask.
We would approve a variance of 3 feet in height, and the pole has to be under 19 feet,
Is to be cut off the top to match the top of the sign.
like what he said.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Mayor had his hand up, but do we need a support?
Support.
Support by Ms. Douglas. Mayor?
Yeah, and I think Mr. Godek was going down a thought that I was having, whether it's a good thought or bad thought. I'm interested to hear what our colleagues say up here, but the landlord will never get a sign there, I mean, I guess the commission can change over the years, but, the city, for your edification, we're always empathetic to business needs. We want to see you be successful. And there's always that challenge of managing the individual needs of a business versus the collective atmosphere of the community, right? So if everyone wanted to, take their property and build to their property line, then, the aesthetics of the neighborhoods would change. So that's why we have setbacks and we have all these ordinances and we have homes and buildings and everything that don't comply. And we try to, over time, when, as Mayor Pro Tem said, when we get an opportunity, we seize it. And this commission kind of looks to try to balance and make sure that, the rules are pretty strong, but if there's a little bit of wiggle room to make a compromise based on unique things, it's possible. I don't see, personally, if the landlord wants to keep that pole up there, he's not, I don't think he'll ever get a sign like Buddy's. I just don't see that in the foreseeable future. So if he's unwilling to cut the top of his sign off, then basically what happens is he has a good tenant that came in looking for a sign, a compromise, and then, it gets on the record that it was turned down, and that doesn't help his real estate values if he said, like, you guys move on to a different, bigger location. So, aesthetically, I don't know that moving it down is worse. I think that it does provide the adequate signage. It does help with wayfinding. And it would look a little better than having the tall pitch sign. It's a little less cluttery, but, I struggle with, okay, is a little less cluttery good enough when we look at everybody in the area? But I don't think, I think if the next best option, when you look at the interest of the landowner, is, well, you just hold on to that pole for, a sign like Buddy's, I don't see that happening. So that's not an option. So if he's not willing to work and.
He's been really great with us, but I understand his, position too, without coming before your board.
Yeah.
And at least having that conversation and discussion.
Yeah, and I think this board, is also looking to, come up with creative solutions as well to help everybody involved. So that's just my 2 cents. Curious what my colleagues think.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? So the motion is to allow the sign,
I might vote no on my own motion. I'm sorry, go ahead.
the motion is to allow the sign, but with a variance of 3 feet from the top of the building
Yeah,
up.
I'm assuming the pole is,
Building is 12 feet, 11 inches.
Well, essentially, it's the same language, it's in the agenda, instead of a 7-foot variance, it's a 3-foot variance.
Right.
yep, and the top of this pole has to comply with being the top of the sign.
Right.
Is what I'm looking for. I don't want a pole left there, so
Right.
I don't know what the ordinance says as far as,
So this is forcing the landlord to cut the top of the pole off,
Yeah,
to
it's-
allow them to get their sign.
well, they're obviously gonna probably pay for it, but they could take our approval and say, see, Mr. Landlord, let us thrive in our business here, we've got approval to do this, but I'm still struggling with it, even as we define it here, whether it's a good idea to comply or offer this as a
Can we
compromise.
require the cutting of a pole on,
Sure.
can we?
Yeah, I mean, whether or not they're allowed to, whether or not they can execute that, right, with their landlord is a
Well,
different
no,
question.
no, I mean,
but-
can we, I understand, okay. I just, legal question, Ms. Douglas?
And, I mean, you're paying for the sign, right? Yes. You are doing your landlord a huge favor. I mean, you guys are here fighting the fight for him. You're winning the compromise because we like you as a small business more than we like landlords. Just kidding. And again, when you succeed beyond your wildest dreams and move out, he's got a sign that he can reface. So I think you're going to him with a pretty strong hand to make him cut the top of the pole off.
And I would argue too, the sign would, have a different dimension, so it's not just part of the pattern, which might help people identify it more than just a standard,
Right.
clutter going across.
If it would be any consideration at all, that the sign could be terminated when our lease is terminated. So that it doesn't extend to the next fortunate soul that is bearing the fruits of our labor.
It's between you and your landlord.
Right.
Would they be required to get another variance to put up a
Yeah,
secondary
I think if
sign?
they went to reface it, it would still be non-compliant, so they'd have to come back anyways.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, there's a motion on the table. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 2 on the ends?
See the nose?
That's a no. Okay. Congratulations, I think.
Thank you very much.
Back to work.
That's right.
That was Dan and Eric.
Good luck.
And I'm Gary Casada and
I could have been the
Eric
swing vote
Klooster.
on that.
Okay.
3-3. See, I could have looked for more shrimp.
Guess search for those prawns at the bottom.
Okay, Mr. Hedges, item number 3 is squashed tonight.
Yeah, the petitioners asked that it be postponed until the June meeting. The owner was not able to attend this evening. But we would, since it was noticed, we would need a motion support to postpone it until June.
Okay, is there a motion to postpone till June?
So moved.
Do we have to be specific to June, or can we just say, is there a motion to postpone?
They specifically asked for the June meeting,
Okay.
so.
So there was a motion by Mr. Godek, support by Mr. Casada. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the sign variance has been postponed till June. Ms. Douglas, you wanted to add something.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'd like to, if I need to make a motion to do it, I will, make a motion that we add an item here to talk about the duration of image cycling on digital signs.
Can you be more specific?
I just want to talk about how long a period a sign has to be static before it changes,
So you're
which is
talking-
now 30 seconds.
So you want to make a motion to have that up for discussion tonight, and it was seconded by the mayor?
Yes.
Okay, any discussion on that, Mr. Godek?
I like, most of you know how I feel about electronic signage, so as long as you don't want to make it quicker to
No.
change them, I think this is a great idea to review our electronic sign ordinance and modify it to the benefit of the city. I think it's a great idea. Thank you for bringing that forward.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
What specific was the motion? I got.
Motion is
To discuss it, to
to
add to the agenda.
add an item to the
Oh,
agenda to
okay.
discuss.
I can't believe you didn't come prepared to talk about this tonight, Doug.
But not for today, you mean, in a future meeting?
Well,
Comment?
I'd like to at least introduce my concept, knowing that, and then, probably with a subsequent motion to ask staff for, further study. You're welcome, Doug. Anyway, here's my idea, and that is that we make the duration, okay, right now, signs can change every 30 seconds. What I would suggest is that we make it an hour. And here's my logic. It doesn't hurt gas stations, which are, have that whole price sensitivity thing, because they change their sign once a week or or twice a week. But it takes the monetary value out of a commercial sign with multiple clients exhibiting on them. Now, this is going to affect signs that are already in existence, but it at least puts a stake in the ground for future signage and takes the financial benefits out of using one of those signs as an off-premise billboard.
Can I ask a question?
Mr. Godek and then Ms. Beaky.
Again, I think that's a great idea, and I'm hoping we can move something in that direction. A couple questions on it. Maybe the length of time, going from 30 seconds to an hour is quite a leap. Maybe something in between might work better, but that's open for discussion. Would it have to be grandfathered in, or could we make this a compliance for existing? Once you change this zoning ordinance, someone that has electronic signs that are changing it every 30 seconds, could this be something that'd be changed to people that already have signs?
Billboards under the zoning ordinance, no. It would only be applicable to ones going forward.
Billboards, but I mean regular.
Billboards are under the zoning ordinance, not the sign ordinance, so billboards are subject to
Michigan law?
non-conforming status under state law.
Yeah.
Signs are under the sign ordinance, and they are not subject to that, so it may be possible to, I don't know, I would have to research of whether or not you could retroactively apply that to previously approved electronic message centers on signs that aren't billboards. My initial reaction is I don't think we can, but we can look at it.
That would be one of the questions going forward as you pursue this, is if that could be applied to the sign ordinance, not necessarily the billboard, because that's Michigan law governed. I had one other comment, but I'll wait. Thank you.
Mayor?
So, in that particular case, so we'd also have a situation where, let's just say a business had an electronic message board, it changed hands, the business, let's say, and you had a new tenant. Now, it would be interesting to understand that sign, is it now compliant? Because usually we think in terms of, variant, you know what I mean? Like, okay, you bought the business, the sign's fine, but because now there's new messages going on there, it'd be very interesting to understand what, if the business changes hands. Typically it may not affect it, but I think because of the nature of it, it'd be interesting to understand, because it's a new message. I mean, even though we're not supposed to read messages, it's a new owner, and does it change the dynamic a little bit?
I think the sign goes with the property. I don't know that a new tenant would affect that. Oh, I thought I heard Mark say something.
I'm sorry.
It's clearing your throat, okay. Worthy of exploration. I mean, I think this would, some of the businesses that have, if this did affect existing signs, I mean, schools which have a sign, I mean, I don't know that it's gonna harm them to have it only change, or to have it change less frequently. Churches the same way. I mean, you have a sign that says worship here on Sunday, and then an hour later you have a sign that says, Vacation Bible School or whatever. I mean, I don't think they would be harmed by the decrease in, the number of messages that they could display. But we do have electronic signs around town now that are not tied to the site, but that are in fact, running ads for other businesses. And if you look at, I mean, I get ads emails every now and then from a billboard company, and the money they get, they change every 15 seconds in some areas, and it's like a license to print money. But if you reduce that frequency, you reduce the desirability of those electronic signs and billboards. Sorry, that was me.
Mr. Gordon?
Is the planning department looks at the potential of bringing this upon existing electronic signs, we talked about enforcement, or I have, so once somebody flashes a sign less than 30 seconds right now, they're out of compliance as far as the sign ordinance goes.
McDonald's.
So you have a method for, at least for people that don't comply, you're out of compliance with the sign ordinance, so you get to comply with the new one, which is an hour or whatever it is. That could be a possibility to do that. The downside of having an hour is like, I hate to put it upon our code enforcement to sit in front of a property for an hour to time a sign or.
Some might want to hang out there. I don't know them personally, but.
But I also agree with Commissioner Douglas's point about it. I don't think it would adversely affect these businesses because for these electronic signs, the most difficult conversations we've had with petitioners have been, churches that want to let people know of a bingo or a Bible study class or whatever, and that doesn't need to change every 30 seconds. If that changes once a day, it's fine. I think the 30-second rule is dumb. Are you trying to, someone's driving by and you're hoping that they're going to catch two different messages.
Where does that come from, the 30-second rule?
When
Is that
we
the
read,
standard, industry standard?
actually, the industry standard is 8 seconds.
Oh,
So we tried to come up with something greater than that. The main thing we were looking at is essentially safety of motorists going by and having to look, at something changing every 8 seconds we didn't think was appropriate. We thought the 30-second time frame would give enough people driving by a sign that changes, that it's not going to be that distracting to them as they're driving by it, that through a 30-second time frame, most motorists are going to be able to get by a sign before it's changed. And it isn't changing that quickly, but many of the sign industry standards use 8 seconds
and we have to
flip
allow
messages.
electronic signs?
We have, that was settled with the last rewrite of the sign ordinance and the billboard section of the zoning ordinance.
When was that?
In the last 2-3 years, yeah. It's been recently.
There were some of us who voted against it.
In the electronic signs, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The electronic signs, when you're saying it's a billboard or a sign on a store or a church or whatever, that the 30-second is applied to both of them, even though they're actually in two different categories?
The same standard is used in both ordinances. The sign ordinance that applies to signs and then the zoning ordinance section that applies to billboards.
But you could have them be different then, since they're two different. I mean, there's no reason that they all have to be 30 seconds. If, to your point about stores and churches versus billboards that are up for, they're in a different category, so you could say that they can't change their ads as frequently. I mean, again, I personally think we should not
Mr.
have
Godick and then Mr. Casada?
I wanted to ask your question this, a little bit differently with Mr. Hedges. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Doug, but you said that the billboards have to be treated differently because there's a state, they're also regulated by the state. Is the time limit that we put on the billboards more restrictive than what the state allows?
No, it's not. What I was referencing is that they're handled by the state is our billboard standards are in the zoning ordinance. Therefore, they are subject to non-conforming regulations that are essentially under the State Zoning Enabling Act. It's treated no differently than a non-conforming building or a non-conforming use. You know, once it exists, if you rewrite the standards to that specific building or use or billboard is no longer in compliance, they can still operate at the older standards. We can't go back and retroactively enforce new zoning standards on existing buildings, existing units, and existing billboards.
So-
That non-conforming status does not apply to signs, because the sign ordinance is a completely separate ordinance outside of the zoning ordinance.
I believe I understand, if I could kind of restate that, so I understand that. Billboards, we could change the time on them, but it wouldn't affect the existing ones.
It would not, you could change the time on them, certainly, but it would not affect the one, such as the one that was approved tonight.
Until it changes ownership and.
Nope.
Once it's there, no matter what.
Yes, the non-conforming status goes with the property, not the property owner.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Casada?
Okay, I would, first of all, respond to Commissioner Douglas by saying that's good, clever food for thought there about the 1 hour rule. A little thinking out of the box there, and I much appreciate that. I'm gonna think about it. It's like I said, it's very clever. I'm gonna spout off about some other things. What's the value of these electronic messaging boards in the first place? I'm unaware. You're saying there are places that have an electronic messenger board that they put there for themselves, but then they advertise on it?
He's right there by the shrine on Woodward, where by. Law firm. The
That guy?
law firm.
Well, then, I think he owns that law firm, but,
But
I know
the-
who the guy is, by the way.
But the advertising on the sign isn't for the law firm, or isn't always for the law firm. He's selling other ads.
Okay.
We can't control content.
Right.
Right, you can't read it.
But we can control the timing.
What we hear from people, well, we never hear that. We never hear somebody come in here and say, you know what, I really need a sign, I want to put up some advertising for a different business. Nobody says that. They all say, oh, well, it's so, we'd have to go out in the snow and change it, and now we can, change it with a button inside and all that. For that value, you're right. A store like Holiday Market was gonna come in here, they're not gonna need to change it every 30 seconds. A church wouldn't, back in the old days, a movie theater, they still have it, they gotta change it by hand, but if that was electronic, they would only change it once a week. So the pace of the changing for most of these purposes, a slow pace is appropriate. One of the things that happens, this is my opinion, is that the reason we have the problem with the obnoxious electronic messaging signs is a matter of people doing things not because they should, but because they can. They have the ability to make it active and loud and brighter than their neighbor and brighter than the moon, and so we're gonna do it, I don't know how to curb that, other than, raising awareness about the aesthetics of it. But so if this is one thing that diminishes that aspect of it, that would be great. I'm not sure, I have to think about it. It's interesting. So I will. One thing I would say, if all the signs were like the billboard, now I said I don't like billboards, but if you know what I'm talking about, you go out to these billboards and you're looking at it, is that a lit billboard? Is that, and you can't even tell. If the electronic messaging boards look like that, that might change the dynamic too, and I don't know why they can't, but anyways, it's my comments.
Anyone else? Mayor?
I know, going back, if we're gonna look at it too, and this gets even trickier, but, I've been here, I've had mixed support of electronic messaging centers. I see how people want to get their message out, how, every hour, most institutions and businesses don't need to advertise every 30 seconds. It's just, like Mr. Casada said, we have room to put 50 things, let's put 50 things. You know what I mean? Half the time when you drive by churches, it's, okay, yeah, we're helping the homeless this night, and then 30 seconds later, it's like, some religious message, which is great, but, you know, the purpose is really, you know, to inform about the programs. Typically, that's the basis of why, you know, they petition to come here and get these. So I think it's a good idea to look at, you know, curbing some inappropriate uses, and making sure that, you know, if it's truly about the intention of the electronic message sign, to extend the time. But I also like the idea, I mean, the one thing that gets me is always the animation. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily a message that pops up, and if it's more aesthetic and like, you know, looks like a real sign and you can't tell, that's even better. But it's the fireworks and everything like that. I don't know why that bothers me. And we're not supposed to read the sign, but, you know, if animation can be looked at.
It's not even
It's
allowed.
not allowed.
Yeah, I know.
Currently.
Well, it's there.
It's there.
Call the building department.
Code enforcement.
So, anyways, but those sort of things, I think, you know, if it looked more like a static sign, and just as if you're replacing the sign on your awning, that would be really good. I like that idea.
So do we need a motion to ask staff to investigate the benefits, methods, and duration of extending the time of digital displays and come back to us with a report? Or will you just do it?
I don't know, to be honest, if we're gonna be able to find much data on how better is it to have 30 seconds versus a half hour versus an hour. From when I remember we last looked at the ordinance, I just don't think there's a lot of data out there to give you a really in-depth report of what time would be best. It may just be a matter of what time is the commission comfortable with, and direct us to amend the ordinance to have that, because I don't think we're gonna be able to bring you back much information that will give you a comparison of how much better or how different they are at certain times. I just don't think there's enough data out there that we could find.
Well, out of a courtesy, I mean, we're not gonna sit here and make a motion about this tonight, and you'll wanna consult with, you know, the rest of your department. Can we, make a motion now to add this to the agenda in June? With this, the opportunity for staff to come back with their reaction to this idea, with the idea that the commission would make a motion then and pick a time, pick a length.
Mr. Klooster?
Would it be possible to get a summary of digital signs that have been approved since the 30-second time limit has been in place, and solicit feedback from those users if they would find a hardship with anything longer?
Not by June, I can tell you that. We wouldn't be able to have that ready by then.
Would any of them say that it wasn't a hardship?
I don't know that they would, but I just blanket statement, it's a hardship, doesn't convince me. If you can
They're gonna say no.
pose an argument for why it would be a hardship, then I think would behoove us to listen to. I don't think, none of us operate a digital sign. We would have different feelings about it if we did. But I think it would behoove us to listen to what a potential hardship might be that we can't foresee. And if there is validity to that, I would behoove us to listen to the community who actually uses it.
I have a comment. So when people come before us for digital signs, we hear a variety of reasons why they feel they need them. The one that's most compelling to me are difficulty physically going out there and changing the message. You know, the snow and it's an old fixture and it's got wasps in it, and so there's some physical limitations of actually physically changing a sign. So that argument to me is compelling. I hate electronic signs, but that is compelling that they can do that from inside and have a safe environment to change their sign in. Other arguments are these flashing advertisements, you know, CVS has Pepsi on sale. I don't go to CVS because Pepsi's on sale. If I go to CVS, it's because I need something from CVS. And I'm driving by and I see a sign that says Pepsi on sale, I could care less. And I think, I'm assuming most people feel that way. So, you know, I think we're hearing different reasons why people want these messages changed. So I'm interested in what you've brought up, because what gets me to the point where I approve them is they would only need a message per hour or even per week, depending, if they're trying to change them inside. Church service has changed from 11 to 10:30 this week, and guest pastor Reverend Sue Smith, and boom, you're done. The ones that bother me are those constant flashing the fireworks, and they're there. They're not supposed to, but they do them. So maybe this can help get us to that discussion of, slower messaging. Mayor?
Well, and I think you're right about the day, although I'm a little bit different. So Hollywood Market, every time I drive north on Main, I come home with a porterhouse steak when it's on sale. $9.99 a pound, so we've been eating a lot of steak lately, so I guess I'm like, oh, well, we're putting the squash back in the fridge and we're having a porterhouse, all right.
No more spaghetti squash.
Can I ask?
Mr. Godek and then Ms. Beaky.
I agree with your comments, and everybody knows how I feel about electronic signs. I think some of the previous commissioners told me I should go on anger management when electronic signs come in front of us, but I think they're garish. I've seen neighboring communities that don't regulate them, and they're hideous. We're not. This is a bedroom community that has a nice downtown thriving business, and I voted against the ordinance change because I wanted to see electronic signs go away entirely. But to regulate them a little bit better, they haven't been well managed in this community. There's a lot of non-compliance. When the planning department comes back with some thoughts on how to proceed with changing this ordinance, I'd like to know from the building department, what do we do for when they are not compliant and someone complains? Do they get a warning to correct? Do they get 2 warnings? If they're still not, what is the actual compliance method by the city? And if we could also change something like that to, kind of like 3 strikes and you're out kind of thing, power down your sign and go to a static sign if you can't comply after 3 times or something like that, to put some teeth in enforcement, because it's too easy to change. Like Mr. Casada said, it's one of the great things that's convenient, but you can be compliant 1 minute and non the next. So as you bring back more information on it, that would be nice to know about compliance. So that might help with our decision on the timing for it too. Like if we go to 30 minutes or an hour or whatever, it could help us decide.
Ms. Beaky?
This is a little bit different question. Maybe there's not even, I'll just put it out there, and I don't know if there's an easy answer. What's the financial benefit to the city itself of those billboards that are here and there? Is there a tax that we recover, or it's just the land that someone gets and they just put it in there? Okay, that was one question. And then the other one is, do any municipalities in Michigan completely prohibit billboards? If the state doesn't.
You mean electronic signs or billboards?
Now I'm back to billboards, just generally,
okay.
Any kind of billboards, whether they're electronic or not. Is it something that we could prohibit if we wanted to? I'm just curious. Or is it a state thing? Do we?
Mr. Ott?
I have no idea.
I don't think we can.
I don't.
I think you have to allow certain uses, and you can limit where they are. Ours are strictly in industrial zones and along highways. You
I
can.
want to lobby someone, I lobby the state to say the whole state shouldn't have them anymore.
Right, or they can only be a certain distance from other billboards, but you can't forbid them.
I did look into that when we were looking at changing the ordinance, and when we had the fight for the billboard that was referenced on Coolidge. There are some states that tried to ban them, but there's a lot of money behind these things.
5 have them banned.
When they bring the attorneys out, and I don't mean that in a bad way, that fight.
Kind of bad, but not really bad.
That put the good fight for when you have a big monetary incentive to put signage up, it's hard for municipalities, even at the state level, to fight these huge multi-million-dollar profit centers. The one state that was a little bit successful in what you were talking about is, I think it was Minnesota was the one that put a tax for local municipalities to benefit from it. Because these are big revenue generating things. So it was look at it was sort of like a property tax amendment that this furniture store that's leasing the property to Lamar or whoever it is getting a benefit from them. So that basically increased the value of the property. So the city assessor would come out and say, oh, as long as you have a billboard up there, you're going to pay X amount of dollars more. So it was a way of trying to throttle that stuff down. And it was kind of a good incentive to do that. And it was revenue for the city too.
Mayor?
Yeah, I mean, on that same point, I think on the billboards, in this particular case, I think the assessor, they're gonna have to do some construction. There's gonna be a value associated with that improvement, right? And so that's interesting to know how that would affect the tax assessing role. Not a task, Doug, but just a conversation point. I'm gonna look into that because, maybe there's not a direct implied, here's a billboard tax, but because if that landlord there is now getting $300,000 extra a year, or $100,000 or $10,000, whatever it may be, that's value on that piece of, unless they treat it as equipment like FF&E, and then that's all gone away with the way the state goes. So
It says it runs with the property.
Doug, do we have an inventory on electronic signs that we've approved in the last few years?
No, we'd have to put one together.
How would that be taxing on your department?
It's not gonna be easy, but, I mean, it's gonna take time. It's
can you run a
not,
query?
it's not something we can have by June, I can tell you that.
No, I'm not suggesting, but can you run a query on all your agendas using the word electronic and anything
It
that
was
pops
done when
up?
we changed the ordinance. There was a list at that time.
Well, the only thing we would have would be billboards that have come, which this is the only one, and sign variances that have included electronic message centers.
Yeah.
That's where the action has been, is in the variances.
So, planning does not, you'd go through the sign permit records to see, to find out which ones have electronic message
I
centers.
think that was done.
I don't, that's,
I mean, I'd like to get an idea of what we're talking about. Are we talking about 100? 50? I just would kind of like to get an idea of what we're talking about here. I think it would help us, not by June, I'm not saying that, but do my fellow commissioners agree? Do we want to have an idea? Or does it not matter?
It strikes me that it remains an open question at this point as to whether we can retroactively change the duration on existing signs.
Right.
If we can, then it's worthwhile to do that inventory.
Okay.
If we can't, it's a moot point.
Yep.
Okay, that's fair. Any other discussion on this, any other discussion on this, the electronic signs?
Well, I think the question remains, do we need a formal motion to ask staff to look into this?
I think that's a good idea.
At the city commission, we do.
sure.
So I
You
would,
want-
I would move that Mr. Hedge take the tenor of our conversation and report back to us. Give us a preliminary report next month.
Right.
Support.
You don't need to do the work, just think about it.
Okay. Motion by Ms. Douglas, support by Mr. Godek. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Popular subject. Okay, any other business to come before the commission? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Support? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?